What is up, y'all? My name is Slush and I'm the creator of SLUSHROPES. I'm a huge advocate of the rope flow practice, and if you clicked on this video, chances are you're probably curious about rope flow, or maybe you just want to learn more. Rope flow is one of the most exciting movement practice I've discovered, as it not only touches on fitness, but it also touches into flow arts. Rope flow was systemized for mobility, aka the ability to just move our body better. And in my personal journey, I've also discovered that rope flow also helps with our mental health. The mental health aspect for me is honestly why I continue to practice it every single day. So whether your intentions are to be a better athlete, or maybe you're just looking for a hobby that's super fun, but also that's great for your brain, well, guess what? Rope flow gives us both. And so let's get into it. So here are the 5 things that you need to know about rope flow for beginners. Number 1, what is rope flow, and is it the same as jumping rope? So a few years ago, I actually uploaded a what is rope flow versus jump rope video, and at that time, I shared with you guys what I knew. Things have changed throughout the process, and I'm super excited to share with you guys an updated version. It's safe to say that most people in the world have an idea of what jump rope looks like. Even if you've never jumped a rope before, I bet that you at least have an idea or an image of what you'd look like if you were to use one. So we're gonna do a quick exercise. I want you to close your eyes, and just for 3 seconds, I want you to imagine what you would do or what you would look like if you were to use a jump rope. So what image or action comes to mind? Did you see yourself, I don't know, maybe jumping over the rope? And if you did, that's great. And if you didn't, that's great too. But this is probably the best place to start when learning what rope flow is and maybe what it isn't. When I talk about rope flow, especially when introducing it to new people who might have never seen it before, I use jump rope as a point of reference. Not only is it because it's familiar, but it's also because that's how I ended up in the rope flow community in the first place, through jump ropes. And so as a rule of thumb, there are some core principles of rope flow that separates it from jump rope. The first one being is that we don't jump the rope. And this is probably something that most people will notice almost immediately when comparing rope flow and jump rope side by side. The second thing you need to know about rope flow is how native the side-to-side sweep actions are, something that isn't as prominent when jumping rope. If you're wondering what this side-to-side sweep action looks like, let's do a quick exercise. So look to your left, and now look to your right. And I want you to repeat that over and over again. So think of this as looking at your east and your west, and these directions are actually going to be super important later on. One of the best examples for this is a pattern called dragon roll. In jump rope, the most basic yet important skill that we have to learn is the open swing. This is essentially you jumping over the rope with the rope moving forward or in front of you. So in rope flow, being that we don't jump the rope, we turn into the dragon roll, which is essentially the equivalent of an open swing in jump rope. And when I say equivalent, I mean it's the go-to or default pattern to do when you pick up the rope. Without learning the dragon roll, it does become a little bit more difficult to access more complex patterns, being that this is the most fundamental skill that you need to learn when getting into rope flow. And honestly, if you can do one pattern from rope flow and that would be the only pattern that you know, it would be the dragon roll. By the way, in case you're looking to learn how to do the dragon roll, I have an entire playlist called Slush Ropes Rad Rudiments that's completely free on my channel. My playlist is perfect for anyone who wants to go straight into learning without the extra chit chat. And the best part is that it also comes in slow-mo. So make sure you check it out. The last thing you need to know about rope flow is how it was systemized in the early 2000s by David Weck. He's a creator of this thing called the Bosu ball. If you've never heard of the name, I bet you've seen it before. The Bosu ball is that half balance ball thing that you see at every single gym. And so from my research and understanding of rope flow, it was systemized to help athletes perform at their most optimal state. Well, how so? By incorporating mobility in their training. In case the word mobility is new to you, you're not alone. Mobility training is something that's fairly new in the fitness industry. And I don't want to assume that everyone watching this video is a fitness expert or a coach. So the way I like to explain it is very, very simple. Mobility is simply the ability to move our body better. From a training perspective, mobility training isn't truly enough, but when you combine it with other forms of training, such as stability training and strength training, you can really improve your overall athleticism. Rope flow has been around for decades. Again, this was systemized in the early 2000s, but it didn't really reach a worldwide popularity until the pandemic. With gyms being closed, equipment being out of stock, most people turned into jump ropes and flow ropes since they were the most accessible. All right, for number 2, benefits of rope flow. The second thing you need to know about rope flow is the benefits. There are so many benefits that come with rope flow, but the very first thing that comes to mind is how low impact the practice could be. And yeah, you heard me right, low impact. So high impact activities look like jumping rope, running, jogging, going on a hike, doing basketball, doing sports or kickboxing, things like that. And since in rope flow, we don't jump the rope, we actually eliminate the amount of stress our ankles and knees take. And so for me, I came from a jump rope background and I actually had a pretty bad foot injury. This is literally how I ended up in rope flow to begin with. If you're someone, maybe you're just looking for active rest, maybe you're looking for something that you can still do without having to push, the limits, maybe you're dealing with an injury, rope flow is honestly perfect for you. The second notable benefit of rope flow is increase in range of motion. And so when we combine flexibility plus mobility, we have range of motion. If the term range of motion is a new thing for you, that's totally okay too. Range of motion exercises are designed to increase the flexibility of our joints, muscles, ligaments, which can overall just help us, perform better and reduce risk of injury. So by performing range of motion exercises, such as rope flow, we can improve our joint mobility and increase our overall flexibility as well. So this is something that you also find in yoga or Pilates. All of this only helps us move better, more freely, and more comfortably in life. By working on our range of motion, you can also improve your posture, your balance, and overall physical function. Since we're talking about this, I do just want to say that it's so important that we listen to our body and know our personal limits. What's comfortable for me might not be comfortable for you, and vice versa. So even though rope flow is very low impact, please be aware that your own range of motion and capacity looks different than someone else's. Make sure that you take things at your own pace. If you find that you're feeling pain when you do rope flow, make sure to immediately stop and, just maybe dial it down. As a rule of thumb, rope flow should never provoke any type of pain or discomfort in our bodies. If you ever feel like, something hurts, make sure to stop and listen to your body. I can't emphasize this enough, but the rope keeps us honest. By practicing this modality, we can easily pinpoint in real time certain imbalances or leaks that we might have in our bodies. So whenever we practice on one side, we want to make sure that we also practice it on the other. As someone who's been practicing this for years, I can tell you that I've had to work on my non-dominant side, aka my weak side. Since I'm a righty, my non-dominant is my left, and I've had to work extra hard on my non-dominant side just to get it very, very close, but not quite to my right side. And since you're fresh in your journey, always work on both sides, just because it's a lot easier to learn than to unlearn. Believe me, I had to learn and unlearn the hard way. Probably go on and on about the benefits of rope flow, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to choose one of my personal favorites, which is experiencing flow state. Flow state is the mental state we enter when 1, we are fully immersed, 2, when we are focused, and 3, involved. When all of these factors are present, we find ourselves in flow state. Flow state is also kind of interesting because it's actually a paradox in itself. So what I mean by that is two things that shouldn't coexist, coexisting at once. So what I mean by that is, in flow state, time seems to stop, and a long period of time can feel like 5 minutes. So this is something that you might find, like, maybe you're driving, from work and you're going home and you have a 30-minute drive. Have you ever driven a car and all you remember is getting into the car and next thing you know, you're home? Has that ever happened to you? Well, that's part of flow state when you just can't seem to remember, like the time that's passed. And in rope flow, this is something that we also experience. The third thing you need to know about rope flow is your why. You need to know the reason why you want to do this, because just like with everything else in life, knowing and recognizing why you want to embark on a certain journey is so crucial to your next future steps. So in other words, your why will continue to push you to keep on going. As someone who's been in the community for years, I've seen the rope flow community evolve from its roots to this ever-growing substyles exploding all over the world. So let me ask you this. Why do you want to start rope flow? Why do you want to incorporate it in your lifestyle? The answer for everyone is going to be different, and that's exactly the point. When I first started out my journey, it was honestly out of desperation. One of my biggest dreams in life was to be this, professional jumper, be so good at jump rope. And, at that time, I just lacked wisdom. I didn't know that there was such thing as overtraining, and that, if I got an injury that I should really take care of it. These are things that I didn't know before. And so, when I was dealing with my foot injury, I just kept thinking to myself, like, if there was a way that I can still work with the ropes, I think that would be so cool. And so here comes rope flow, where my why, made so much sense. And, through this, I found so much joy in the process and in the practice that, I've really downloaded, the lifestyle that this comes with. And so for me, my why is simple, Nowadays, my why is because it's fun and it calms me. I use rope flow actually as a form of meditation, as it allows me to cope with the stress. And, I'm also able to release any bad energy that I might be stuck in. Sometimes, certain energies in our body get stuck, and, really you have to use movement to get unstuck. And so in other words, rope flow is my therapy. As you join the rope flow community, you will meet so many types of people, especially online, with different whys. And my opinion is only my opinion, but I want to encourage you to apply rope flow in your lifestyle as it resonates. As you join the rope flow community, you're going to meet so many amazing people that uses rope flow for different reasons. And this is also how certain substyles or certain genres under the modality, is growing all the time. And I want to encourage you today to apply rope flow as it fits into your lifestyle. Apply it as it resonates. Apply it for yourself and make it fit for you. If you're working on becoming a better athlete, you want to be more explosive, apply rope flow for its physical mobility benefits, And if you're like me, and you simply want to express, you want to flow, apply it for its soul mobility benefits. So it's so important that you tailor it around you, center it around you. Think of your needs and think of what you'd find the most beneficial, because at the end of the day, it's for you and for you only. Number 4, how to get started. So obviously we're going to need some flow ropes, and you're probably wondering, where can you find flow ropes? Are there any alternatives and things like that? So before I get into this segment, I did want to share with you guys the story as to how Slush Ropes even started. A few years ago, I started an Instagram page called Slush Ropes, and this was just a page where I can upload all my jump rope videos and meet other jumpers, online and stuff like that. And I never honestly intended this to be a full-time business. So what I'm about to say can conventionally be seen as bad for a business, but my desire to honor our community is far more important than anything else. I genuinely believe that rope flow can help so many people. It can help us heal physically, emotionally, mentally, and I am a huge believer of the practice first before anything else. And so I want to recognize that everyone's access looks different. And depending on what part of the world you're in, things might be a little bit easier to reach or maybe more difficult to reach. So with that said, here are some recommendations based on your needs. The first thing you can do is you can use your hands. You can learn rope flow with just your hands, and this costs nothing, and requires you to buy nothing. And this is what we call shadow rope flow. If you want to get started right now, like right now, you don't even have to buy anything. You can start with your hands. The second thing is you can use a basic jump rope. There are so many types of jump ropes, but, for me, my personal favorite, if you're learning rope flow and you do have that choice, I would recommend going with a beaded jump rope. If you don't have that, use a PVC rope. And this can cost you very, very little money, especially when comparing it to a flow rope. And since jump ropes are much more popular, there's a very high chance that, your local department or sporting goods store might have one. The third alternative is making your own rope. And so if you're someone who has a lot of time and you enjoy the DIY experience, you can go to a local hardware store and find a rope. And, once you get that rope, add in a knot on each end so you can have a handle, and then you're good to go. This method will save you a lot of money, especially if you're not even sure if you're going to stick to it. And for the fourth alternative, you can also try my ropes. If you want to get straight into learning and save yourself some time, I recommend that you check out my site, which is SLUSHROPES.com, for some of the best flow ropes in the game. I've personally gone through the DIY process, and, there are a lot of things that I've learned, throughout that entire experience. And so, if you just kind of want to get straight into learning, you don't even want to worry about, how do I cut the rope? How do I do a knot and things like that? Make sure to check out my site. So another thing that a lot of people ask me is what rope is the right rope for them or for beginners in general. And so as a rule of thumb, there isn't truly a standardized metric that determines, hey, this is a beginner rope. There isn't really the right rope to start out with. And I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but the right rope is honestly the rope you feel most comfortable in. So if there's one thing I'm going to say about finding the right rope, it's honestly just choosing what not to get for your first rope. A type of rope I wouldn't recommend when starting out, in your rope flow journey is a heavy rope. And if you look in my sizing guide, you'd also see it as a primal rope. Regardless of your fitness strength, using a heavy rope as your first rope, can truly lead to developing poor habits or just poor form. And besides, in rope flow, your main objective at first is to internalize and download the patterns, in your sleep kind of thing. So think about that for a second. It's not the weight of the rope that will lead you to develop, your flow, but rather the amount of reps that you put in. So the more reps, the more familiar it becomes, right? So with that said, what do you think would be more effective? A rope that allows you to do more reps, or a rope that requires more strength per rep? As we've discussed, it's much easier to learn than to unlearn. So, that is just my take on using a heavy rope as your first flow rope. There are so many types of flow ropes available, and they vary from color to weight to size and the combinations of those three. So I totally understand how overwhelming it could be. So if you're looking, for a standard flow rope that's tried and true, both by beginners and professionals, I would recommend that you check out the Snow Milk Mamba or the Slush Mamba off of my site. They are perfect for any style, any skill level, and this one will surely not disappoint you. And the last thing you need to know about rope flow is feeling is knowing. In conventional fitness, we hear things such as mind to muscle connection. In unconventional fitness, such as rope flow, feeling is knowing. So I recognize that most people watching this video may have zero to very little rope flow experience in the past. And if I could go back in time, I would tell myself to trust and lean more on what feels right over what I think it should look like. The fine tuning I've discovered just happens over time. The more reps, the better you get. And, the better you get, the more complex and intricate, your movements become. And so feelings and emotions are so hard to measure. And I totally understand why, feeling this or that might sound almost nonsensical. However, there are actual gravitational laws that the rope or rope flow abides by, and this is found in the X, Y, and Z axis. This is something that we probably have done, in high school. And this might seem like a mathematical or like geometrical theory, but it's true, There are lines in which the rope will naturally flow and gravitate to. And this is something that we can dive deeper into for a separate video. But for now, just remember that feeling is knowing. So if you're just getting started in your rope flow journey, you want to get into it, just by messing around with it. If something feels right, go for that. Continue to repeat it and then explore from there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon.